From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Good afternoon. Board to reconvene. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Peters.
Here.
Supervisor Scrivener.
Here.
Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
Thank you. We will begin with a report on actions taken in closed session. I'll ask County Counsel Margot Rayson to give us that report, please.
Good afternoon, Chairman Scrivener, board members. This morning, your board met in closed session on items 45, 46, 46A, 47, and 48, and there is no reportable action.
Thank you, Madam Counsel. So now we'll consider the consent agenda. Agendas are available on the two tables in the rear of the chambers. And so starting with page 3, we have item 5 on consent, items 6 through 9 on consent on page 4. On page 5, items 12 through 15 are on consent. All items on page 6, 16 through 23 are on consent. On page 7, items 24 through 32, all on consent. Page 8, all items 33 through 38 are on consent. Page 9, all items 39 through 43 are on consent. On page 10, items 44 through 46, as well as 49 and 50 are on consent, so excluding 47 and 48. And on page 11, all items 51 through 58 are on consent, as well as all items on page 12, items 59 through 66 are on consent. And so at this point, I'll ask if there are any members of the public that would like to make any comments on the consent agenda. Please come forward if you would. Don't see anyone. So then I'll ask a motion of the board to approve the consent agenda for the Board of Supervisors and to reconvene as the Kern Sanitation Authority at that point to consider item 1.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
So we're adjourned as the Board of Supervisors and reconvening as the Kern Sanitation Authority to consider item 1, which is on consent. I'll ask if any members of the public would like to discuss this item. Otherwise, I'll return to the board for a motion to adjourn, to approve item 1 and to adjourn as the Kern Sanitation Authority and reconvene as the Board of Supervisors.
Motion.
Okay, motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're back sitting as the Board of Supervisors. The next item on our agenda would be item 2, public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on this agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the board. So I'll ask if there are any members of the public that would like to make any comments. You have 2 minutes to do so about items not on our agenda today. I see, I think 2, maybe 3. Please come forward. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Eddie Lane. First, congratulations to Kern County for your successful application for State Parks Funding Program, Round 4 of $6.5 million for Lamont Park, with the assistance of the Townsend Group. It's hoped that in the future, such valuable consultant assistance would be available for collaborative work with public and nonprofit entities throughout Kern County for funding for parks. Also noteworthy in today's agenda is funding for parks in qualified census tracts for using American Rescue Plan funding for parks in economically disadvantaged areas. This division of funding on a per-district basis can be a template for the $10 million being planned to use for Wi-Fi in parks, beginning in Hart Park. With regard to this $10 million, there was no community engagement. The Parks and Recreation Commission were just told it was a done deal. There was no mention of this $10 million plan in the Parks and Recreation or Hart Park Master Plan. Moreover, the one survey which is being passed out about Wi-Fi indicated opposition. What is clear is that this is a duplication of the $6 billion plans currently underway by the state to bring broadband coverage to unserved households and businesses. The county's stated rationale for this $10 million was that households lack basic services. This is exactly what the state funding will be providing. What is needed, like the $5 million today, is that this $10 million needs to be divided so that each supervisorial district would get $2 million for parks in underserved areas. One example, I passed out a picture, the closed restrooms in Rexland Acres Park. This has been closed for months. This money could be used to renovate or upgrade or open that park. Let's use this $10 million for common sense and needed improvements, such as opening restrooms in public parks. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Appreciate it. Next public speaker, please.
No, it's not going to stay up here.
Hello, Board of Supervisors. As you know, on 2 occasions, I've submitted a no vaccine passport.
Excuse me, can you state your name for the record, please?
I'm sorry. My name is Mary Lill. I'm a concerned citizen. Hello, Board of Supervisors. As you know, I have on two occasions submitted a no vaccine passport to enact to protect citizens of Kern County. I'm extremely disappointed by the board's lack of response to this extremely important issue. When presenting at the meeting, I was snickered at by a board member. Zach Schreiber did say thank you when I was done, and I later received an email from his aide stating that supervisor would not endorse the resolution. I asked for a meeting from the supervisor. However, there has been no response. I have not received a response from any of the supervisors on this matter. Why is that? The board works for the people of Kern County. Do you think that you do not need to respond to people on an important issue? We are concerned. We are on the verge of losing our precious God-given freedoms and liberty. Your duty is to take action on the public requests and also enact legislation governing our county. So again, why is it that you just ignore this request? Your silence is unacceptable. Your inaction is unacceptable. Your lack of leadership is unacceptable. You do not get approval from us from this type of government. Just to dismiss me is not serving your post to defend the state of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Did you know that one county in California has already adopted the vaccine passport by their county supervisors? So if they can adopt it, you can surely adopt a no vaccine passport or a resolution. I urge you to consider and submit it as an action item in order to keep the citizens of Kern County safe from tyranny. I will not back down from this. If you think this is not reality and it's not going to happen in Kern County, you are wrong. If you think you can remain quiet, you are wrong. You have authority, pen, paper, and a voice. Start using them before it's too late.
Ma'am, thank you for your comments. I didn't catch your last name, but do you have that in writing that you could provide to our county administrative, county operations officer?
I submitted it to my last board meeting, and I also emailed them all to you. I can do it again.
And I appreciate that. I want to make sure that any of the board members that may be interested, that they have the most current and relevant information from you.
I'll email it to you again, Mr.
Okay. If you could submit it to Mr. Zervis right there, if he could raise his hand.
I don't have one at this time. I'll email it to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Wayne Wong, and I'm a resident of Kern County since 1973. And I'm here for several reasons, but one of which is to support the resolution that just has been mentioned by Mary Little. Okay. And the subject of vax passports is not a trivial one, even though you may not see it right now. Remember, you're a conservative county in Kern County, and being conservative, you would naturally be concerned, as even people who are not conservative should be concerned about issues including the vax mandates or vax passports, excuse me. Vax passports are means of control and identification of our vax status, as you probably know. Now, this topic, if you've been keeping up with the news, and you should be, it's a hot topic across the world. We see populations in Europe rioting over or protesting over vax passports. We see our friends across the pond in England, the UK, has given up on vax passports and mandates. So we're in America, we have more trouble with the vaccine than other countries. They have less death and less for their population. There is something wrong going on here. I would like to share with you some information, which I'll hand out afterwards, having to do with nullification. Because when items such as vax passports come this way, and you will need to respond to them in some way, I want you to be prepared. Nullification.
Sir, I just want to let you know you have exceeded the 2 minutes, and so if you can finish that in the next few minutes, then I will allow you to do so.
Okay, I will give this to you, and you can
Thank
read
you.
it yourself.
Thank you.
But you all know the phrase that our fathers used, no taxation without representation, right? The Boston Tea Party. Okay, and nullification is no vaccination without justification, because we've got a virus that's collectively we've got a 99% survival rate with a drug that does not prevent infection or transmission. So why should we follow this? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Alvarado, and I'm here also to support what Mary Little spoke about. Please adopt this resolution. We need you to support this important issue to keep Kern County safe from tyranny. We need you to do the right thing. Now, Mr. Couch, I know you probably don't remember me. It's been a while. From the gray hairs you can see, it's been that long. But I did support you. I went door to door when you needed support and votes. And I hope that my shoe leather and my efforts were not in vain. Please. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public speakers? Okay, seeing none then, we'll move on to board member announcements or reports.
I have one.
Supervisor Couch?
Thank you. I just wanted to let everybody know that, I don't know if you recall, but it was about 3 years ago, we gave a proclamation or recognition to a gentleman named Don Modesto Lopez Batista for his 110th birthday. And I just wanted to let you know that on January 17th of this year, he turned 113. So happy birthday to him. I just thought I would mention that to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any other board member announcements or reports? Okay, seeing none. Okay, so we'll move on then to item 4, which is under planning. And so I'm going to turn to Lorelei Oviatt, our Director of Planning and Natural Resources, to give us some direction on this item.
Thank you. Chairman Scribner, members of the board, this is an appeal of the decision of the hearing officer for vesting tentative parcel map number 12280. and it was appealed by Northern Heights LLC. They have withdrawn their appeal. We have provided you an addendum with a letter from their attorney, Wendell Rosen, officially withdrawing the appeal. Withdraw of the appeal therefore means there is no hearing, there is no consideration. It also means that the decision of the hearing officer to approve the parcel map and whatever conditions were on it now stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oviatt. Just for clarification from either council or our clerk, do we need to take public comment on this item? It's withdrawn? No? Okay. All right.
Good
Thank you.
decision.
Thank you, Supervisor Couch. Appreciate it. All right, so then we will move on to item 10 and I think 11. Yeah, 10 and 11 are in tandem to a large degree, and so we're going to hear 10 and 11 concurrently, but we will be voting on these separately if a vote does occur. And so I'll invite our staff from the Public Works Department, chiefly our Director, Craig Pope, and Lynn Brooks, good evening, or good afternoon to you, to tee us up for these items and for the discussion that will follow.
Good afternoon, members of the board.
I think welcome back may be in order for
Well,
Mr.
thank you.
Mr. Pope. Good to see you.
It is good to be back. I appreciate that. I was sorry I wasn't here last time this item was heard, but we'll take a shot at it again today and bring you some details. A lot of things were said last week or 2 weeks ago when this there. We hope to bring some clarity. Our goal today is to bring a little clarity to it. So I'm going to start with a couple slides, and then I got a few words I'd like to say before we get into the full presentation. This item is a solid waste management program rates for fiscal year 2022 and 2023. In other words, it's rates for the entire program. This is continued from January 4th. Today we're going to try and bring some clarification to a lot of things that were said. I would like to take a couple moments and point out that this program is to fund our entire operation. It's not just for one item. We got kind of hung up on the composting facility. That's part of it. Senate Bill 1383 is definitely the driving force here. We have the unenviable task of bringing forward to you rates that are increasing in the good part due to conditions brought to us from the state. I mean, this is not the direction we would have gone personally, but it is mandated, it is in law. We're bringing before you what we think is the most cost-effective, balanced proposal to meet recommendations and requirements of the state and to provide the level of service that our public seems to want. I mean, we experienced it during COVID. They didn't like any proposed changes, so we hope we have a balanced program to present to you today. As you are aware, our county splits the cost of moving garbage from the generator to the processing facility, which we call landfills, and disposing of it basically in two parts. One is the haul, that's provided by our franchise haulers, and the other is the county operation. And it's two parts. And we realize if you push the cost down on one, it drives the cost up in the other, or vice versa. So we're trying to provide a balanced thing that lets it be about like it is today. We process the garbage at the landfills, both the organics and burying the rest of the garbage for everybody. It's not just for county residents, it's for all the cities. The cities are counting on us to come up with a program for this. They have given us letters of request to be part of this program. Last meeting, we had a couple speakers get up and talk. One was Kevin Barnes, and he spoke regarding the proposed Shafter compost facility. I'm going to just say first, this is only one of 80 projects that's in our proposal, and you'll see that when we get into the presentation. It's a big program. It's not just one item. So if people were concerned that we were charging too much for that one item, they'd be absolutely correct. But we will show, as we get into it, this is for our whole program, and our whole program meets all the requirements of the state. Kevin Barnes, rightfully, he's concerned about the cost for the community. We are all concerned about the cost of the community. We agree with him. He brought some good points forward, and he thought he had methods that would be more cost-effective, and they might be. But what we are doing, one of the things we wish to do on that specific project, the Shafter compost facility, is that we wish to have a balancing act. We're only proposing to build a facility for 100,000 tons a year. This community is going to generate 500,000 tons a year. This community, the private facilities that are being set up, weren't looking to get compost from us. They set them up with the thought, LA, Southern California is just over the hill, and they're going to need a place to take their organic material. So again, we propose as part of this whole process to build a compost facility. We will be able to see what it costs to run it ourselves. And if I kind of liken it to the city of Bakersfield and their hauling mechanism, they do half the haul themselves and half the haul out to franchise haulers. And why do they do that? They do it so they can see what the cost truly is. And they have been very successful. I mean, it shows exactly what it is. With us going and building a facility that's 100,000 tons, which is only 20% of what's out there, we will then know what it really costs. And we'll be able to make recommendations to this board whether we should build more or start sending it out to the private facilities. And we do use a private facility. We currently are using them a lot. They're very expensive. It costs a lot to process the material, get it clean enough, get it to the right condition, put it in a truck and take it to them. That's a lot of money. And so it's not just, oh, there's capacity out there, go use it. We'd have to be raising our rates just to do that. To even feed it to other people, we'd have to be increasing our cost. So I think Kevin was speaking from the right place. He wants to find a way to do it as cheaply as we can, so do we. And we'll be working, I'm sure we'll be working with him in the future. We also heard from Nancy Ewart, and Nancy Ewart was an employee of mine. I left us in 2018. I listened to what she said, and she basically alleged that we weren't following the plans that were adopted by the board, and that's just absolutely false. We will bring forward information, anything you want on that. That's not the case. I have trouble with Ms. Ewart's testimony. She lost a lot of credibility with me after she left us. She came back in with one of her employees and basically shredded an entire room worth of documents. Contrary to city policy, or county policy, state policy, you can't do that. So it's just that you can give her whatever credibility you want. Doesn't have a whole lot with me. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to Lynn Brooks, and let her go through the presentation, and then we will have some other possibilities at the end of it to discuss.
Mr. Pope, thank you for your comments. I do think that it's important as we go through this discussion that we keep in context why we're even here. And this is the state of California, from my perspective, wanting to fight climate change and putting this on the ratepayers. And so could you just speak a little bit to what is the impetus for this discussion in the first place?
Absolutely. Senate Bill 1383's goal, I mean, it's a very big bill, or the bill's actually small, but all the rules that were written for it are huge. But basically, the goal is to get organic material out of the landfill. And the purpose of doing that is to stop the generation of methane gas, because they have identified methane gas as one of the great evils for climate change. I mean, you compare it to carbon dioxide, it's 20 to 40 times worse than carbon dioxide. So it's one of those things that the scientists believe that this is what we should be doing. Landfills are the #1 generator that's caused by people for methane. So it is a target. I mean, I even talked to some guys in the oil fields, and with Chevron, that were saying, they were after us for a long time, and they said, why don't you go talk to the people that really generated it? So they did, and they came talk to us. They set up this 1383. So it is a climate improvement bill to get rid of methane. It's very far-reaching. I will say we drug our feet as long as we could to try and implement it. I will say we were hopeful that they would turn and go to a lesser degree than they are, but the rest of the state got on board. There are a lot of communities out there that spent a whole lot of money doing this technology and whatnot to try and comply with it. So we're being dragged along reluctantly, I'd say.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Brooks.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Scrivener. Sorry. Thank you so much, Supervisor Scrivener. I'm going to recap quickly. I'm going to try to be quick. The January 4th meeting, we held a public hearing for the land use fee, the gate fees, and the bin fees. The proposed land use fee was 1 to 4 residential units, $180 per year per unit. 5 or more residential units, $144 per year per unit. The proposed gate fee is $65 a ton. The proposed bin fee, $3.38 per cubic yard of bin capacity. The county received 3 protests for the gate fee and the bin fee, which is 0.09% of the population subject to the fee opposed the increase. The county received 240 protests for the land use fee. That's 0.1% of the population subject to the fee opposed the increase. The board is authorized by the public to adopt the rates and the rate adjustment formula. So the Prop 218 process was completed, but we still need board approval. In the extended public comment, 2 former public agency solid waste staff members, city and county, both left their employment prior to the county's development of current strategies and implementation plans. Neither submitted questions or comments at the public information meeting held on December 7th, and neither submitted a written protest. Neither submitted written comments prior to the meeting. Kevin Barnes submitted data at the meeting, and Ms. Ewert referenced Kern County solid waste plans. Kevin Barnes, the retired city employee, focused on total permitted capacity. They're private, for-profit facilities. We have no guarantees on contracts or capacities, and we have no control over the cost. It's important to note that private facilities can be costly for us and require pre-processing before the shipping. That often costs us more than $30 a ton, and then we have to pay the composting fee. Ms. Ewert, the retired county employee, made comments that are just not accurate. She made absolute statements in her previous presentation to the board which are absolutely false, and I'm going to walk you through why those are. She left her county employment in 2018. SB 1383 was finalized in November 2020. The reports that Ms. Ewert cited are consistent with the current strategies and implementation plans. The host fee strategy is being fully implemented, but is insufficient for current and future volumes. The land use fee was discussed and vetted with the Solid Waste Management Advisory Committee on October 1st. Ms. Ewert also stated that the rate increases and implementation plan that had not been brought to SWMAC, and this is just not true. SWMAC did not have an item to vote on because the Solid Waste Integrated Management Plan and all of the updates are being followed. The rates are the only things that need to be modified, and that rate adjustment is done through a Prop 218 process and brought to the board for approval. She also spoke that we did not use consultants. We used many, many consultants. I specifically focused on HF&H, who has helped us over, my tenure there in the last 4 years, and they specifically concur with the construction of the Shafter Wasco compost facility. The reports she cited were the 2013 Kern County Solid Waste Infrastructure Plan. That does discuss composting possibilities at the Shafter landfill. The 2015 Kern County Organics Diversion Strategy recommends developing a full compost capability in the short term at the Shafter landfill. And also in that same report concluded that no rate increase will be required prior to 22-23, exactly what we're asking for. The 2015 Compostable Organics Program recommended adding a compost facility to the diversion area at the Shafter landfill. The Kern County and Incorporated Cities Integrated Waste Management Plan, Kern County-wide siting element 2014 recommended a Shafter Wasco as possible composting site and designated as a location for advanced and conversion technology. The 2015 Kern County Integrated Waste Management Plan Source Reduction and Recycling Element Unincorporated Kern 2015 Amendment references all the previous reports and identifies the Shafter Wasco landfill with the ability to expand organic processing and composting. So how are we going to process 500,000 tons of organic waste? We need to create green waste processing facilities that are compliant with the state regulations. That's Cal Recycle, the California State Water Resources Board, the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District. We do utilize outside resources, Mount Vernon, Recology, Liberty, and Centigro. We install screening technology at our sites, processing areas. We've purchased grinders, diesel and electric. Our electric grinders are waiting on PG&E for final connections. Air burners, that was also brought forth, I believe, by Mr. Barnes and Ms. Ewert. The burn box is fully permitted by the Air Pollution Control District, and we're waiting on PG&E for final connection services. Part of that, we are proposing this compost facility at Shafter, and we are evaluating other conversion technologies. Just a little history of the compost facility, because quite frankly, I was taken aback by the opposition to it. So I went back to look at the history, because when I came into the waste world in 2018, this was well underway. The Waste Management Department hired Matt Cotton, a compost consultant, to assist the staff in evaluating options for developing a compost facility in 2014. A request for information was sent out in 2016 under the direction of Ms. Ewert. An RFP was issued in May of 2017, again under the direction of Ms. Ewert. And after further analysis of various composting technologies, site tours, meetings with Mr. Cotton, the department staff recommended hiring SCS engineers to be awarded the contract in amount of $400,000 to provide design, engineering, and technical services for an aerated static pile compost facility at the Shafter Wasco landfill based on the 2017 RFP. So here we are. We've completed the environmental impact report, planning, State Water Board, Cal Recycle, Kern Public Health as our LEA, and we're in the final stages of approval with the Air District. It's kind of late to back up. So I want to move in to talk about money. The Easton Fund, I'm not sure a lot of folks are aware of it, AB 2448, established the Solid Waste Disposal Site Cleanup and Maintenance Account in 1987. The minimum balance required for the Kern County Solid Waste Enterprise Fund is $36 million. Just to let everyone know, the Public Works Department has reviewed the implementation plan, budget, and financial forecast with the Kern County Administrative Office and the Kern County Taxpayer Association. These are the next 5 or 6 kind of boring slides, but I think it's important because we talk about implementation plan and financial forecasts. What you see on the right are the list of projects each year, and I'm going to go through these all the way to 2930. So bear with me. So on the right, you'll see $35 million of projects, and I'm just going to touch on the big ones, otherwise we'll be here all day. The Bena Diversion Area surface upgrades is kind of the first one. We have 7 landfills and 7 transfer stations, so there's a lot of projects. I believe Mr. Pope mentioned 80 over the next 10 years. We have $5 million to create surface upgrades out at Bena, because we will bring all our self-haulers into the self-haul facility. Right now it's dirt, there's potholes, it rains, it's just not safe for the public. We are looking at upgrades at the McFarland-Delano transfer station of $2 million. We also have in the first phase of a compost facility at Shafter. Also modifying the entrance road along with road fund on the Schofield Road entrance. We also are looking to purchase property and build a new special waste facility. And most important, we have 7 landfills, and about every 7 years, they need a new module and a liner. And first up here in this projection is Taft. So this is phased in over a couple of years, $3.3 million. The Tehachapi landfill. Landfill closure, that landfill is reaching capacity, will reach capacity in the next year or so, so we need to start building a transfer station to serve that community, $6 million. So when you look over on the left-hand side, you'll see revenues, and this is assuming that the $180 per year is passed. That actually leaves us a little below on our cash balance. You know, we don't spend money as fast as we hope to sometimes. Things get delayed, so we tried to keep the line, and I'll show you how this kind of pencils out in a graph in a little bit. Here we go to 22-23, the next year. We have $28 million of projects. I'll start out on the right-hand side, the burn dump remediation. We have a lot of burn dumps to remediate, $2 million for that. Some modifications at the Lebec Transfer Station, $1 million. The remaining compost facility construction, $10 million at Shafter. More work on the special waste facility, $1.5 million, and the last part of the Taft landfill liner project, and more work at the Tehachapi landfill and landfill closure construction. So that takes $28 million of projects, again, takes us even below what we need to be at. 24-25. Sorry, a lot of numbers here. We only are showing about $6.7 million of projects, a self-haul facility at the Shafter landfill. We need to make some upgrades if we're going to send all of our self-haul customers. Some of these things will come clear later on in the presentation. We're talking about spending a little money looking at conversion technologies again. Now we're back up in on the left-hand side, revenues, and a cash balance of $40 million. Mr. Pope's probably jumping out of his skin because he wanted me to talk about the $43 million of services and supplies that you'll see each year in this, and I'm gonna let him speak to that.
Just real quickly, the Waste Management Department, or the Public Works, we spend $43 million in services and supplies. That's paying to outside people to provide service to us. It's not our costs, it's not, our employees, it's not equipment for us. This is paying contractors. We have to pay for 7 different landfills that have operators. We pay the city of Bakersfield for their Mount Vernon facility. It's getting close to $7 million a year that we're paying them. There's a huge cost just to running this business. It's an expensive, very expensive business.
Thank you. 25-26, we are showing about $25 million of projects, moving into hopefully some of our conversion technologies that we have talked about, and finishing up construction at a special waste facility. Keeps us around $39 million for a balance. In the fiscal year 26-27 year, we are again proposing conversion technology at the Bena landfill for $14 million. Mojave landfill will start a liner project, about $1 million just getting started. And the Shafter Wasco module liner construction, $2 million is estimated. Takes us to about $22 million a year in projects. Again, services and supplies at $45 million, leaves our balance about $41 million. In the 27-28 year, we have Mojave landfill is our major project, $4.6 million. Again, starting to work on a liner Module 2 excavation and liner project at the Ridgecrest landfill, and now we're in another liner project at the Shafter Wasco landfill for $10 million. And again, continuing with our services and supplies around the $45 million leaves us a cash balance of $48 million. 2829, we're at Mojave, we're still doing liner projects. Ridgecrest still working on liner projects. It's important to know we used to pay about $5 million for a liner project. Now they're costing us around $15 million. It's a big jump from our past years. Shafter Wasco proposing conversion technology for $17 million. So that leaves us our cash balance at the end of that year around $39 million. And our last year that we're projected out that we're sharing today is the 29-30 year technology, conversion technology at Shafter for $17 million. And again, we up services and supplies to $49 million. I'm not sure why that jump was there, but I'm sure we have the documentation for that. Probably just costs go up over the years. When we rebid our landfill contracts, they went up 25%. So that's probably including some of that. Leaves our cash balance around $42 million. Just to show the cost of our Mount Vernon compost facility and explain again what the operational agreement is it's operated by the city of Bakersfield, and it's funded in part by our land use fee. And fiscal year 14-15, we paid the city of Bakersfield $2.1 million. You can see it's gone up incrementally. 2021, we paid $6 million. This year, it's projected to be $7.7 million. So it's almost quadruple since 14-15.
And that's, just to pause there for a moment, that's from 2014. We're looking at, we haven't had a raise since 2012. And so we're experiencing a lot of the same cost over that time frame. And we had enough cash in the bank. That cash is starting to run out, and that's what we're here to show you.
I took this, when I was reading through the documents, I took out, I found things that were just, interesting and said it was pretty concise. While many jurisdictions are responsible for 1 or 2 solid waste facilities, Kern County is responsible for 7 active landfills, 8 closed landfills, 7 transfer stations, 3 special waste facilities, and 43 burn dumps. Those burn dumps have to be remediated. The 2005 Solid Waste Infrastructure Plan approved by the Board of Supervisors recommended reducing the Kern County solid waste operations just down to 3 regional facilities. So to that end, we put together some options, and Mr. Pope has one more for you that's not shown here. What can we do? We're not insensitive to the cost of, this 180 to our constituents. So we don't have to build the Tehachapi transfer station. When it reaches capacity, we could have that waste transferred to either Bena or to Mojave. The haul costs would go up for the residents of Tehachapi and the people in that area, and that facility wouldn't be available to the residents. They would have to go to Mojave or to Bena or wherever they chose to. But that would save $7, take it down to $173. I put the numbers on the right so that you could, kind of pick and choose. Transfer stations are our most expensive operations. That's not the final destination of the waste, so it's picked up from there and moved to one of our landfills to either be buried or processed in some other way. So closing the Lebec transfer station will save a few dollars, dead on $170. The McFarland-Delano transfer station, $4, take it down to $166. Closing the Kern Valley transfer station would take it down $3. The Keene, Randsburg, Twin Oaks, Glenville, just $1. And also, then we looked at our landfills that, are problematic. Boron, that area will end up going into universal collection, they may not need a landfill, saves $1. The Taft landfill's been expensive for us because of all the environmental issues that we've had out there. If we chose to close that, it would take it down $6 to $155. And finally, if we remove the illegal dumping component, we could get down to $133. So that's out there for your consideration. So as we looked at this, we were looking for a cost-effective solution, a balance between the land use fee, the hauler cost, and the customer needs. The land use fee current rate is $8.75 per month, and it's proposed at $15 a month. The franchise hauling costs, if we have less disposal and transfer facilities, that'll result in higher costs, hauling costs for the customers. I had these numbers pulled because I know we've had a lot of self-haul traffic at all of our sites. So we had about 155,000 self-haul customers at our transfer stations, 20,000 at our bin sites, and 541,000 at the landfills. We believe if we close facilities, we'll have more illegal dumping, and we will have increased hauling costs to the incorporated cities as well. So why are we here at this point in time? This is normally something that we do in April or May. Senate Bill 619, this bill until January 2023 would require the department to only impose a penalty on local jurisdictions and would require a penalty to only accrue for a violation of the regulations if the local jurisdiction does not make reasonable efforts as determined by the department to comply with the regulations. So the resolution with a notice of intent to comply is due by March 1st. Mr. Zervis asked us to put together this chart, and I think it does explain it really well. The blue line that you see is the Easton Fund, the $36 million. The red dots are the 105 scenario. So that's what we're currently getting, and you see that we're going down fast. The $180 scenario is kind of the green with the dots, and it keeps us pretty close to the blue line where we need to be. So we've spoken about this at the last meeting, bringing forth a summary of revenues and expenditures for the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund each year, and if necessary, it could be adjusted downward. So our recommendation is the Solid Waste Management Program Service Charge, residential, the proposed increase, proposed rate per parcel, 1 to 4 residential units, $180 per year per unit, 5 or more residential units, $144 per unit per year per unit, and this is on the property tax roll for all residential properties. The Solid Waste Management Program Service Charge non-residential gate fee and bin fee, the proposed increase, the proposed rate, gate fee, $65 a ton. Bin fee is $3.38 per cubic yard of bin capacity. The gate fee is paid at the entrance to the solid waste facility, is not subject to a Prop 218 protest hearing. The bin fee is derived from the gate fee. The bin fee is paid through the franchise garbage hauler. It is subject to the 218, since commercial properties in the universal collection area are required to use their franchise garbage hauler. And I'm going to go back to this slide because Mr. Pope has another possible option that we worked on this morning.
First of all, I'm sorry for the tight lines on the diagram that you're looking before you. That, as she explained, the solid line across the $36 million mark is this Easton Fund that we have to keep more than that handy. Our line drops below it briefly, but that's if we were successful in spending everything as fast as we can. We sometimes get a little bit behind, so I'm confident we can stay above the line at 180. We know 180 is a tough number. We've heard that loud and clear. So we looked at some other options to bring forward, specifically Supervisorial District 4 asked, are there ways to finance it? And we had run through some scenarios on our own and hadn't really hit on any, but we have, do you know how to put that on that?
No, I don't.
Okay.
but I'll figure it out. Like this? And then what do I press?
We have,
Oh.
hit it. There's another line there. It's a solid line that's pretty close to the $36 million mark. That reflects a $160 million or $160 a year fee with a $30 million loan. We checked with the CAO. Is it possible that we might be able to float $30 million up front? They thought it was possible. 15-year payback, but it also has a 3% escalator in it. And the 3% escalator is what keeps us floating. So that's a way of getting it down from 180 to 160, but we had to put the 3% escalator in it. The other one at 180, the one that's there, only has a 1.5% escalator in it.
And so, Mr. Pope, just for context, where is it currently, the fee? We're at 105?
The line that is shown, all three
The one
lines
that's
are on
going
the
down?
first part, and then the dotted line that drops
Yeah,
off
so we're at 105?
at 105, correct.
Okay.
And the trouble with that is, as you can see, we run out of cash pretty darn quick here. And we have to either make it up through general fund, which is not viable, cutting services, which we know is not a good topic. We have to find a way coming up with more money.
Well, I think we'll want to drill down on this option for 160 and with a cost escalator. Maybe I'll leave that to you, Supervisor Couch, to take the first try at that conversation. But can you go back a couple of slides to where you show potential facilities that could be shuttered in order to reduce the costs? Yeah, that's the one, I think. So notice most of these are in District 2, but we'll get into that later.
Go right ahead, Zach.
Yeah, I know, right? But the point I wanted to make, though, is that, this is a very large county, 8,200, square miles. My district is 3,660, I believe. And there have been times, over the recent past where we have had transfer facilities that have been shuttered for one reason or the other. Staffing maybe was an issue, or COVID, you name it. But the impact to folks living in Keene or Twin Oaks when their transfer station is closed is a lot bigger than $1 to carve off of a potential $80 fee increase. Those are real quality of life kind of impacts, I guess I would say. And I think that, perhaps you could argue that folks in Kern County are a little spoiled because we do have how many operating landfills, and if you look at larger counties, they have much less. Maybe what we're paying, for those, currently for those conveniences, for those services, maybe less than other parts of the state, but it doesn't matter when you're faced with your transfer station or your landfill being closed in order to carve off, a few dollars from a larger increase that, once again, is mandated by the state of California. This is an effort by the state to fight climate change, and these costs are real when you have to start implementing these programs. So I'll leave it at that at this point in this discussion. I don't know if any members of the board have any questions or comments before I go to the public, but I'm happy to do that now if staff is ready.
Mr.
Pope?
I would like to speak for just a moment longer. You nailed it on the head. I mean, our biggest challenge in the county here, and it's not just us at waste, it's not us at roads, it's all the county services. The county's really big, and we have to spread out and have offices or have facilities all over the place just to save on the transportation time and cost, and that's expected, and it's a challenge, and that's exactly our biggest challenge.
Supervisor Scrivener, may I add one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
because Ms. Ewart is really focused on the documents that have been approved by either previous boards or this board, I think if we make a decision to move forward with keeping all of our facilities open, that is a change that then we can make to these documents and then bring back at a later time.
Very good. Okay, any members of the board have any questions or comments before I go to the public? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open this up to the public. I'm going to, Ms. Ewart, I don't mean to single you out, but I think you requested to have a little bit more time than maybe I allocated the last time. The last time we were at 2 minutes. It's important that if I am going to set an amount of time, that everybody gets the same. So is 4 going to suffice for you? Okay, so everybody will get 4 minutes, and we'll make sure that that way we maintain parity in the discussion. So I'll ask any members of the public to please come forward. You have 4 minutes.
Gentlemen, ladies, I'm John Carnes, a retired local architect. So I'm here just to basically echo what you've just been saying about the state. SB 1383 is another unfunded state mandate. This mandate passes the responsibility on to the counties, which is why we're here today, which passes the response costs down to the residential and commercial haulers or commercial users. So, of course, the residential land fees are up 71%. Gate fees are up 44%. So I'm getting to the point that there's more costs being passed down than just the $180. These gate fees, are they going to be passed down? And I'm especially concerned about the negative impact to our local economy by another unfunded state mandate. Once all these costs and policies are implemented, these policy requirements are more far-reaching than appear on the surface. They apply to, well, starting in 2022, food service businesses must donate edible food to food recovery organizations. This is applicable to school districts, community colleges. The list is unending. So are all these costs? Who's picking up these costs? Okay, in regards to policy requirements, there's also penalties. So the city manager of Hesperia, Nels Benston, states that the cost of these penalties and violation processes reflect a punishment-focused approach, and we are concerned that this approach will further stress and burden our city. Also included in the policy is penalties of $10,000 per day for each violation. So, in summary here, the state of California is sitting on a $31 billion surplus, but concurrently they're passing these costs down to the cities. So, in conclusion, I just respectfully request that the board recommend to the state that they become a financial partner in funding SB 1383 in order to achieve a more equitable distribution of the responsibility for achieving disposal reduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carnes. Who will be next, please?
Hi, Dennis McLean. Good afternoon, board members and staff. I'm speaking in opposition to the organic waste tax increase brought forth by this incompetent state government. This measurement would be a financial burden on all property owners and extremely difficult for seniors on fixed incomes. This climate control fantasy is one reason why Californians are leaving this state, this overtaxed state. I understand Los Angeles will be bringing their waste here for disposal. Is that correct? Can I have the staff make a comment on that?
Mr. McLean, thank you for that question, and I'd be happy to get you an answer once you conclude your comments and we go back to staff. But it's a great question.
I just have one more sentence. While the roads in this county continued to decline, somehow the state can impose more taxes for the stupid projects, much like the bullet train to nowhere. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who'll be next, please?
Good afternoon, Chairman Scrivener, members of the board. On January 4th, I encouraged your board to pause, step back, and revisit the plans approved and the conditions in place and thoroughly consider whether the department's proposed actions to increase the rates by 72% were really appropriated and needed for Kern County. My point was to help you understand that the County Public Works Department has many options and is not painted into a corner and threatened by the state enforcement of AB 1383, SB 1383. And it would appear that only a portion of the 72% increase is related to SB 1383 and therefore subject to state enforcement. The rate increase seemed to be targeted to compensate for several years of deficit spending. I provided you with a chart that you have in front of you. Upcoming capital projects not related to composting and SB 1383, and lastly to SB 1383. If possible, I encourage the county to develop a formal organics waste recycling program for businesses, such as Cal Recycle points out in their PowerPoint presentation on the subject. The organic collection for businesses is key, and the department could really work with haulers and implement local ordinances requiring businesses to implement this three-cart system. These ordinances were to be in place by January 1 of 2022. I also advocated for the 2018, this was also advocated in the 2018-19 grand jury report to your board. You've also been provided a copy of that. Since that meeting of January 4th, staff have reiterated several times that they have a plan to address AB 1383, a very detailed plan. Mr. Barnes and I met with county staff yesterday. Many of them are here in the audience. We met with the staff to reiterate our concerns and were again told of this plan. However, we have not seen this plan, and this plan has not been reviewed or concurred upon by the Solid Waste Management Advisory Committee, which is charged with such issues. Staff indicated that the cities were fully aware and on board with this rate increase request. Staff specifically cited the City of Shafter Public Works Director Mike James. So I spoke to Mr. James this morning. He indicated that Mr. Pope and Ms. Brooks had made a Zoom presentation to the city over a year ago, prior to the 27% increase for the illegal dumping. During that presentation, Mr. Pope and Ms. Brooks alluded to a second phase of rate increase to deal with 1383. At that time, the City of Shafter wrote a letter in opposition to rapid, the illegal dumping rate increase, and they indicated that SB 1383 was a much more pressing issue. Today, you also have the city's letters in your package. Today, Mr. James indicated that they had not heard back from the county. Additionally, today, Mr. James had a scheduled meeting with city managers. I think it's actually the Association of City Managers. I'm not specific on the title, but after our conversation, he posed a question to them about their familiarity with the current proposed rate increase and their understanding of the county plan. Those present were the City of Tehachapi, Wasco, Ridgecrest, Cal City, and a representative from the City of Bakersfield. The city managers responded that they were not familiar and had not received a report or plan. They reported that the county staff has been talking to their staff, but nothing has been submitted. One city manager indicated that they had contacted Mr. Pope's office, basically to ask for a report or plan that they could present to their city council. And again, they had not received a report or plan. So in conclusion, it appears that the department has the cart before the horse in asking for a huge rate increase prior to having their plans reviewed and approved. In the past, a plan such as this would have been reviewed and concurred upon by SWMAC. The plan would have been shared with the cities for their consideration, and the plan would have definitely been presented to your board for approval prior to the rate increase. And this plan is critical because it would identify and discuss the barriers to implementation. One such glaring barrier is resolving the issue of charging for commercial green waste. The problem has long been recognized but has not yet been resolved. Specifically, landscapers and gardeners routinely identify their green waste loads as being residential, that is non-chargeable. So a significant portion of the waste stream that should be charged is coming into the landfill for free, which means that everyone else is actually paying for this misrepresented waste. I will be very, very quick now. There's always ways to tackle this problem. Hopefully there is a will to do so, and this needs to be resolved before rates are set for 1383. If the board needs to approve a partial rate increase to address the deficit spending and capital projects, so be it. But the SB 1383 portion of the 72% rate increase needs to be planned, reviewed, and approved prior to the rate setting. Finally, I just would like to add that I have been very, very professional in trying to talk to your board and present this issue. I am very disappointed by the slander and accusations that Mr. Pope presented. They are absolutely untrue. They can only say to me that staff is very, very concerned with my comments and threatened by my comments to make such disparaging comments. I will leave it at that. If I can just say one more thing, and that is Ms. Brooks referred to the 2005 Integrated Waste Management Plan. The plan actually was last updated in 2015. All of the components were updated in 2015. And they did call for 3 regional landfills, Mojave, Bena, and Shafter, and that all of the other facilities, once they reached capacity, would be converted to transfer stations, and basically the waste would be disposed of in those regional facilities. Mr. Pope indicated that there was a question of possibly financing some of this infrastructure and the projects that could be needed. I would encourage staff to look back at that 2015 report that was approved by the cities, your board, SWMAC, and CalRecycle. At that point, it was the will of the board and that no further COPs would be issued. There was a COP as a financing mechanism that governments get to use. And a very significant COP was issued probably in 95 or 97 for AB 939. When that was finally paid off, it was really determined that the department should not, solid waste department at that time, but this was actually approved though under Public Works, that no further COPs should be issued, and that instead financial revenues should exceed expenditures on a year-to-year basis to build up the capital needed for this kind of infrastructure plan. So,
Ms. Ewert, thank
yes,
you.
I just want to make that clarification. COPs were, and that can be changed. You can go back to the cities and the county and change it.
So I'm going to give our future speakers a little more leeway on the time limit, just for fairness. I'd just say that, you know, we We are appreciative, I believe, of your comments and the things you brought to the board's attention. I think that's indicative in the fact that we're revisiting this issue and giving even more time. I wouldn't go so far as to say slander. I think that that's a little bit of an exaggeration, to say the least, but we will give our staff an opportunity to respond to your comments and any comments from anyone here. I think that what we're trying to do is determine what the best course of action. No one is eager to impose a large rate increase. We all are trying to sort this out, I think, in the best way possible. So anyway, next speaker, please. Want to have any others? Okay, all right. So I'm going to go back and return to staff. I'll ask Mr. Pope or Ms. Brooks if they'd like to make any comments. I think specifically I'd like to ask about, I think Mr. McLean had a question we wanted to answer, and Ms. Ewert brought up years of deficit spending. I think that may be relevant as we're trying to parse through what we're paying for that's new versus ongoing costs and facilities, and then also if we do have any communications from the Shafter City Manager in regard to our rapid rate that we approved a few months back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll quickly address Dennis McLean's question about LA County Waste being able to come up here. 1383 opens the door. I mean, we used to have ordinance here that said no outside waste, nor would we export anything. 1383 opens the door for organics. So yes, we will be seeing plenty of outside waste come into Kern County. It will, at this point in time, it will be just organic material, but we'll see what that transforms into. I'll ask Lynn Brooks to talk about a couple of things that Nancy brought up, and then we'll see where we go.
It's interesting that she's quoting the cities, and I don't see any city members here opposed to it, but Chuck McGee from our office is our diversion coordinator and has been working directly to the cities. So may I ask him to come up, Mr. Chairman, and speak to the board on his communications with the cities?
That would be fine, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, thank you. The rate increase that is being proposed is not something sent to the cities for approval or review. It's sent directly to the residential parcel holders for review and comment, which is part of the 218 process. I work with the cities on a regular basis. If I can have a minute just for the city of Bakersfield, and speaking with their solid waste director this morning, emailed me these comments. SB 1383 is clearly impacting our communities in the state, including the city of Bakersfield. Both city and county staff continue to work together on existing waste management programs, as well as developing approaches to meet state mandates of SB 1383. Where efficiencies can be achieved by working together, city and county staff will surely continue to collaborate and seek to minimize the fiscal impact to ratepayers. Please be assured the city and county staff are continuing to maximize the use of existing programs and facilities. However, more will be needed to comply with SB 1383 and avoid fines and penalties. I work with each city on a regular basis. The city of Ridgecrest, the city of Wasco, speak with Mr. James on a regular basis regarding the programs. The program 1383 is requiring is that they implement three-cart collection system. That is a city decision that they have to make. It has nothing to do with us or this rate increase. What we do have to make sure we have are the facilities and capabilities to process the material that they collect in those carts and to comply with the regulations. Every city has submitted to us documentation saying they intend to participate in the compost program, the green waste program, and other programs currently being operated by the department as a mechanism to comply without having to raise fees to their city residents, because they have already paid for it through the solid waste land use fee. And they continue to ask us to make sure we have the capacity to do that. Should we fail, their plans fail, and we would have a nightmare basically on our hands that we cannot let occur. So we're working with the cities to make sure they implement their collection programs in a way that we can maximize the efficiency of processing that material. That's what the cities are doing with us.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Ms. Brooks, was that, do you have any other comments, or Mr. Pope, before I return to the board?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pope, anything from you? I'm going to open this up to members of the board, but I think, want to hone in on one of the questions that's been proposed by staff under the options on slide number 23, regarding various facilities throughout the county that could be, for lack of a better term, Mr. Pope, shuttered in order to reduce costs. And is that accurate? You've given us some options on various facilities that we could no longer operate, that will dial down this cost by, I don't know, $20 or so?
We know the dilemma that's in front of us. One is to provide the cheapest service we can to the public. The other is to keep as many facilities open. We're kind of putting that before you as to what direction you would like to go.
Thank you, and I think that's, totally understandable, and it's a valid option to present to the board, but I will tell you, as a representative of a lot of outlying areas, that this is not the direction that I want to go. I'm happy to explore what you proposed as, I think, a reduction of about $20 a year with some financing options. And I think Supervisor Couch had asked about that, and I'll go ahead, and if it's acceptable to you, just to turn it over and you can flesh that out a little bit more for us.
Sure, thank you. My comments, or my sort of heartburn about this came from, well, and let me ask you this, Ms. Brooks, can you put up your chart, although I don't know if I saw it in this presentation, that shows the year-by-year expenditures? You gave us several charts there for each fiscal year, but do you have one that shows all of the fiscal years?
Just the graph, sir. Just the graph.
Okay, well, let me just describe it then and tell me if I'm accurate about this.
Okay.
In the first couple of years of this, the big project is the Shafter Green Waste Facility.
Yes, sir.
Construction of it.
Yes, sir.
Which is roughly $20 million.
I'm going to go back to the let me go back to the 22, 23. So
Okay.
we have 5 million for the Supervisor Scrivener. Being a diversion area, surface upgrades for $5 million, upgrades at the McFarland Delano Transfer Station, and $8 million for the composting facility at Shafter. That's, basically what we would do in the first phase.
Okay, so what do you spend on the Shafter Wasco facility?
8.4 million.
In year two?
In year one. In year two, we're 10 million.
Okay, so you're 18 plus million. Back it off from 10. You're at averaging $9 million a year for one facility.
Yes, sir.
But after 2 years, you've completed the construction of that facility. We don't
Yes.
have to spend any more money on construction.
I don't believe we show anything in the next
So
year.
I guess I'm going to talk about this from sort of a, not so much a granular level about specific projects, but we are raising a fee high enough that we can build half the Shafter facility every year from now on to eternity, because this fee will not come down unless the board takes action to bring it down. It will stay at where it's at until somebody, not you, not Mr. Pope, I certainly won't be here, decides to come in and say, we need to raise it again, right? And we're looking at about, I think you showed us 8, 9, 10 years of expenditures, CapEx.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The reason I asked, these are the facility at Shafter, once you build it, will be there forever. And my question was, interest rates have ticked up a little bit here, but not a great deal. And we borrow at municipal rates, which are lower than what U.S. Treasury rates are. If we could finance the construction cost of that type of facility over 10, 15, 20 years, yes, it will cost us a little more in the end, but I'm not looking at necessarily that cost. I'm looking at what it's going to cost our ratepayers next year. And if there's a way to step into that rate increase that makes it easier on the guy that's paying the property tax bill, that's what I'm interested in doing. So that's why I asked the question about financing it. Instead of $20 million in 2 years, is it $2 million over 10 years?
I understand, sir.
I'm rounding numbers off. And I also think, how much is it per year for the waste diversion technology?
Conversion technology.
Conversion technology.
We have that estimated, let me find it. Conversion technology. What year? Keep going. Okay. The first year we have in 25-26, we have $15 million in 25-26.
But in the 10 years, you spend a total of 30?
30 million.
Okay. Which equates to how much per parcel on the property tax? How much of this increase does it equate to?
Through the chair, Supervisor Couch, we looked at taking that out and what it would save, I believe it was $5.
Okay. But the waste conversion technology component is something that you are looking at. This is what I remember from our conversation. You're looking at, you like it, you think it has promise. The state has not approved it yet. And you haven't totally made a final decision about it yet, but you think you like it.
That sums it up pretty well.
Am I close? Okay. So number one, I agree with Supervisor Scrivener. I used to represent some of those areas that he now represents in the far-flung areas of Kern County, and that's a pretty small cost to pay for the convenience that I think the residents that live in Fraser Park and out in the desert and the mountain areas utilize. I know if we shut them down, we would hear about it, put it that way. So I'm not in favor of getting rid or shuttering those facilities. What I am in favor of is finding a way to reduce the cost or phasing it in over time. I believe that financing some portion of these improvements, especially the initial one, the Shafter Wasco facility, and I'm interested in removing the waste conversion technology component, but approving it when you have made a final decision and the state has approved it. So maybe approving an amount that includes that $5, but we don't begin collecting on that $5 until you've made your final decision on a technology that you haven't made a decision yet and the state's actually approved. Is that clear?
Crystal.
I didn't think it was going to be clear when I started, so I'm glad you understood it.
I totally have it, and I think that may be a question for Mr. Hall, who helps us navigate these 218s. So hopefully he understood exactly what you said.
Mr. Hall, were you listening? Don't make me repeat that.
I was listening, but it was less than crystal.
Okay.
So,
I understand what you're saying. You're wanting to take a part of this fund, a number in here, and extend it out over a longer period of time, therefore lowering the immediate hit today.
Correct.
And
By two mechanisms. One is the financing of some portion, or whatever staff feels is appropriate, of all those projects, specifically the first one. And secondly, I just don't think we should start charging on the property tax bill for a technology we haven't made a decision about and the state hasn't approved yet.
I hear what you're saying, and from a 218 perspective, there's no problem with lowering this fee to a lesser amount because you're going to be removing something from a purchased item that this fee was considered to be set up for, or because you're going to financing, therefore lowering the fee because you've financed and you don't need as much today because you've lowered the fee through financing. So you can go lower with the fee without affecting 218. The only issue we have here is because the land use fee is specifically tied and part of the bin fee. They're tied together, they go into the same waste fund. We have to make sure that we lower the bin fee proportionally also.
I understand.
And that's your only limitation under 218.
But speak to the part about the $5 component per parcel that's specific for the waste conversion technology that the state hasn't approved yet and that our staff hasn't even decided they definitely want yet.
You can absolutely remove it.
That's not my question. My question is, can we, if we finance it, I think Mr.
Yeah.
Pope said we can take it down to 160.
Yep.
Okay. Can we take it to 155 with the additional $5 approved when and if the state approves it and our staff actually decides they actually want to use that technology?
So you're asking, do we have now approval under 218 for $180? And can we go back up to 100, whatever it is, up to 180 without having to redo a 218 process? And the answer is yes, but we have to tell the public that's what we're doing.
Okay. I don't know how to do that, and that's what I'm asking of you.
Yes.
Okay. Actually, I'm asking you to go to 165. Excuse me, 155 with the, actually, I'm asking you to go to 160, but only start collecting 155.
Okay.
And the $5 would be triggered when the state approves it and our staff actually decides they want it.
Yes, so there's two things going on here. One, what was set at 218, what the public has approved, which was 180. Your ordinance is going to say 155 with the ability to escalate to 160 based on whatever you want to do. That's the ordinance
And
escalation step, but you're still under the 218, $180 you're still fine with.
Okay, well, that's what I would support. I'm not, and I don't support, like the chairman said, I don't want to stop the use or utilization of the transfer stations. And if anybody's got any better ideas to lower the fee to the land use fee, I'm all ears, as Ross Perot once famously said. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. I see CAO has punched in at Mr. Zervis, and then we'll go back to the board.
Thank you, Supervisor Couch, the chair. And this may complicate this a little further because the analysis that was done with the consideration or evaluating the potential financing of a portion of this, as Mr. Pope alluded to earlier, yes, it resulted in an initial rate of 160, but with a 3% escalator in order to keep pace. And so you know that actually gets to 180, within a few years. And what I guess I would maybe ask Mr. Hall to weigh in on the 218 component, because the financing mechanism has changed and we're looking at not a 160 rate, but really a 160 with a 3% annual inflation attached to it. So, and that may complicate the 218 approval.
It does not complicate the 218 approval because the public has still approved to 180. It only complicates when we draft the ordinance that we show what we're doing. So if you want to have the rating, a 3% increase next year, year after, you need to spell those out and as a schedule in the ordinance you're adopting. It does not affect the fact we still have approval from the public at 180 for the 218 process.
So, can I speak to that, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, you may be asking the same question I was going to ask.
Go ahead. What would you like?
No.
Okay.
By all means, I'll let you have the first bite at the apple.
So maybe the question is for Mr. Pope. You are the one that, or you suggested a 3% COLA as a component. Were you suggesting that to cover the interest, or are you just suggesting that to get it to 180?
The goal wasn't to get to 180. We looked at the cash flow of floating $30 million loan to take a hit or to lessen the hit right up front. But to pay that back at 160, then it needed to increase or we'd never get caught up. We wouldn't be able to make the payments on it. So it needed that 3% escalator to get there, to provide enough money over time to make the payments.
Well, that begs the question, how much lower can you go if you have a slightly higher inflator?
We played around with it, and that seemed to be the sweet spot.
All right. Well, I understand what you're trying to accomplish, and I understand the responsibilities that you've been given by an entity that you don't particularly care for, but you have to do something about it. And I understand the public's frustration with this, because the 5 of us are going to pay for it as well. And but those are you've gotten my best thoughts. I'd appreciate it if somebody else could come up with better ones than that. But that's where I would like to head. Thank you.
Okay, well, he's laid down the gauntlet. Who's next? Supervisor Peters.
Thank you, Supervisor Scrivener. One point speaker made earlier was speaking about the unfunded mandates from the state, and the state claiming that it has this big surplus, and it does beg the question, what would that actually be if they were covering these unfunded mandates? But that's neither here nor there. I really am interested in this conversation about the financing of this. I do understand, we can come down off the 180 if we find cheaper ways to go about it. One point on this waste conversion technology, have we dealt with or seen any other municipalities that are dealing with private entities that are coming in and doing that waste conversion that maybe, they can sell the byproduct and do it cheaper than we can, or something that would lessen the cost of that than us running those facilities?
Through the chair to Supervisor Peters, we spent a lot of time looking at various technologies out there to try and find one that we thought was worthwhile to pursue. Most of them are very, very expensive, in the $80 to $120 million range, and leave us with no usable product, basically. This one we're looking at is not from California. That's why it's not approved here in the state yet. It's really the only one that we've seen that gives us a product that we can turn around and actually have a market for. We're pursuing it. We're dealing with the state. So that's why we haven't inked it until we get that far.
Imagine that. We got something that works and the state doesn't want us to bring it in. That's pretty typical. Yeah, no kidding. So with that, I would just like to echo what Supervisor Scrivener and Supervisor Couch said about shutting any of the transfer stations or anything like that down. I know we briefly had one of the transfer stations, I believe up in the Kern River Valley, that closed right at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, and we got tons of calls from the community about how that impacted them, and I would like to avoid that if at all possible. But I know you guys have a big job of trying to find the best way to do this without making it too painful for the community. So that's all my thoughts for right now. I appreciate it.
And thank you, Supervisor, and I appreciate your support, obviously, on keeping those services available to the outlying areas. Supervisor Maggard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Where to begin? Let's talk about gate fees for a moment. There is a very common perception in our community that if you are cleaning out your garage and you're taking whatever it is from your garage that you're hauling out there to the dump site, that you're going to have to pay a fee when you pull up in your car or your truck and drop it off. Please explain to us who currently has to pay a gate fee and who does not.
Supervisor Maggart, through the chair, normal household garbage, residential garbage does not get charged at the gate. If you are demoing your kitchen or have construction demo, that gets charged. We have household hazardous waste facilities so that you can bring your household hazardous waste in free of charge. That doesn't include commercial waste. So normal, if you have a couch, you have a refrigerator, you have all of those things, that comes into the gate at no additional charge. That's covered under the land use fee.
Thank you. I think we need to repeat that over and over and over again, because when people casually read this and it says land use gate fee, they don't know that means it goes on your property tax bill, and it is not paid through the window of your car as you pull up to the gate at the facility. So I just want to remind the public of that over and over and over again. I've had occasion to use the garbage dump in San Luis Obispo County before, and you pay a fee when you go up. I was first told it was $35 to take some boxes and stuff like that, you know, from a garage out to that dump. I get there and it was only $10, but it was still $10, and here it wouldn't cost me anything. You know, just a few weeks later when I go here. So, okay, I think that's important. One of the other questions, I was just asked this last week when I was walking down Truxtun Avenue by a fellow who walked up and asked me if this gate fee that we are charging was one of the reasons why people illegally dump. Well, we don't charge a gate fee. But that begs the question of why do people illegally dump? One of the answers to that, I think, is that it is not very convenient to drive to Bena for some people. Some people don't know where it is. Bottom line is they have to go somewhere they don't want to go. So what's the prospect? I realize I'm introducing a new variable and element into this, but lay into this discussion, please, the use of more transfer stations and how we could make it easier for people to offload those materials and not dump it somewhere instead of going out to Bena. And another element of that is bulky item pickup, so I could put that dead couch at my curb or whatever it is that I want to get rid of. Can you walk us through how that plays?
Absolutely, sir. Thank you. We have been working with the franchise haulers to add in a bulky program, a very robust bulky program, and I will have to tell you, not one of them is very excited about it. I'm not sure why. I said, just give us a price, and then we can evaluate the price. So I think that is the answer. A lot of folks don't have a truck. They don't have the ability to transport these things, but obviously the things out on the side of the road have been transported. We do offer a lot of facilities. I'm not sure exactly why we have the illegal dumping problem that we have, but we need to do a better job of outreach and education, and we have a whole program outlined to spend a tremendous amount of money as required by 1383 to educate the public, but we can educate them on more than one topic at the same time. The organics, illegal dumping, all of the facilities. We are partnering also with Clean California to have some major cleanups throughout Kern County. Caltrans will participate. They will pay all of the dump fees, and we are going to try to get one going in Western Kern at the end of February. And I want to pull in a lot of the community groups to participate. We just had a big bulky waste event in the Metro Bakersfield area, and we could probably have one of these every single month. And if we can pull in the community groups to participate with litter pickup, getting the children involved, and then I think that we maybe can make a dent. The governor, as much as, you know, we're frustrated, he has committed some dollars to Clean California, and I hope that we can take full advantage of the funds that are available and do a lot of bulk events that involve the communities.
This bulky item pickup is a complicated issue, but I'd like us to explore that. I had occasion to throw away a king-size mattress that I didn't want anymore from my home, and I borrowed my brother-in-law's truck, and I have it in my front yard, and I have this big, huge mattress in the back of the truck, and you know, because the next morning I'm going to go down to BC where they have Kern Medical, where they have a drop-off site, and I'm going to leave it there, and it rains all night long. That mattress must have weighed 350 pounds by the time it was full of water. It's not easy for people to deal with that. And I had to harangue my brother-in-law to help me get rid of it after it weighed 350 pounds because I couldn't move it anymore. Okay, I enjoy having the public here. Mr. McLean asked a question. The public very often boils it down to very simple terms. Is it true that LA gets to dump their organic waste here? That's aggravating. I'm sure it's aggravating to Mr. McLean. It's aggravating to me. So what's the chance that we could charge out-of-county organics when they come here more than we charge in-county organics when they are taken to our landfill? If they're going to bring it to us from LA, let them pay more.
Mr. Pope?
Yeah, through the chair to Supervisor Maggard. when we approve, and it's through the planning process, approve one of these facilities being built and set up, we can try and condition it. And we have been a little bit successful, mainly for traffic mitigation and things like that. Whether or not we can just charge an additional fee on top of it because they're out of county, I don't know. But we have had some luck in getting a little bit back from them.
Couldn't you just charge it as commercial? I mean, it's not, I mean, the land use fee covers the.
I think you're referring to other facilities, because we don't intend to take any outside green waste at this point. I guess they could show up, but mostly this is a private facilities.
I thought you said that the state mandate compels us to
Yeah.
receive organics from outside of the area.
They do, and that opens it for the private facilities to build here and take outside organics.
Well, I'd like to see if there's an element of cost reduction we can afford to our local residents in the event that we are consuming our capacity for people who don't live here. And it would only be commercial because, you know, my cousin Rick isn't going to drive up here with his organics from LA. It's going to be some company that would do it. So I'm interested in that. Ms. Oviatt, did you have a specific comment? Mr. Chair, would it be okay to hear from her?
I guess so.
Thank you. Lorelei Oviatt, Kern County Planning Director. Mr. Pope has been resting, so he doesn't remember that his department and he and I did negotiate. Every one of these private facilities pays into a fund. There's a variety of decisions your board made about what the money is used for when it comes, because, as Mr. Barnes pointed out, some of the things that they bring in does affect our diversion rates. So to offset that, they pay so that our department can have money to figure out how to keep our diversions down. So they are paying more when they come in through these private facilities. I, however, do not believe, and I also believe that when we go through the environmental impact report, which is why we require those private facilities to have an environmental impact report, there's also acknowledgement that if it doesn't go into that private facility and it goes to the landfill, it is taking up capacity that otherwise we would need. So we did negotiate that. Your board has a variety of funding that's coming in from Liberty, Synagro, and the new Blossom Valley Recology Project. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm interested in how to factor in what revenues might be available from that type of source against these costs so we can see how much of an incremental decrease in the cost we pass on to our taxpayers they might have to pay for that. How would you go about factoring that in?
I think I can say right off the bat that the amount we're collecting is not enough, because as it stands, we owe money to those facilities.
Well, I'm sure it's not enough, but if it's a marginal increased revenue that we have, can we measure how much that revenue might be?
We might be able to get an estimate of the average revenue stream, but like I say, it doesn't end up being a revenue because it offsets some of our costs that go to them, but as it is, we still incur greater costs to them than we're generating. So it's all a cash flow to them. Right now, we're utilizing all of them.
I am not opposed, I don't like it, but I'm not automatically opposed to charging commercial operations more to take refuse to the landfill when they're making money off of that. And I want to know how to beat the game that, this is from my house. So walk us through how that part can work, and how do we effectively cause commercial operations to pay a fee and not be subsidized by regular homeowners?
I have Supervisor Maggart through the chair. Can I ask Tony Bonanno to come up and talk about our fee system and how we do the system-wide approach, and how currently our numbers are tied, our gate fees and bin fees are tied to the land use fee. But I did want to add one thing. If we have out-of-county waste, green waste coming to our facilities, we can absolutely set a higher rate for out-of-county green waste versus county green waste.
Very good, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Bonanno.
I think your question is in regards to how do we make more money off of material coming from out of county?
Well, that's kind of the question, but I really don't like my, the 99% of the people I represent are just regular folks, and I don't like them subsidizing the 1% who are making money off taking things to the dump.
Sure. What has happened is the compost facilities that have been permitted recently, one of them, we had about a $2 host fee that would go towards processing a green waste that we deliver to them. 25 cents also was added to an economic development component in Lamont area that's going there. So there's also going to be another facility in Lost Hills, and the Lost Hills facility would have a 25-cent component that would go to local economic development. There is no $2 host fee for processing. It's because ultimately what happens is if material comes from out of county and comes into Kern County, the disposal from that particular facility is apportioned to us if it's in Kern County. So what we've done is we've added a $100 fee for any disposal from any out-of-county waste that's delivered there. So in other words, we get $100 if that facility, that compost facility located in Kern unincorporated, they would have to pay for each ton. This goes to a more complicated issue is that these facilities are essentially biosolid facilities. So what we're doing is biosolids, as we know, we've had the sludge ban talk a long time ago. What's happening is biosolids have become regulated as disposal. So what's happening is Lost Hills, Liberty, Synagro, they're having to change their models to make sure that they get composting as a component and biosolids are not disposed. So my anticipated revenue from this is very low because my feeling is that whatever material that they're going to bring to the facility from out of county, from the residuals from that compost operation, would already have been cleaned out before it gets to each one of these facilities. So we're not going to see much in revenue. I don't anticipate. I don't anticipate that they're going to dispose of at a significant amount of material at each one of these facilities. But we do have protections in place to prevent out-of-county waste becoming Kern unincorporated waste.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bonanno. Turn it back, I think that's it for now. Turn it back to the suggestion that my colleagues made about having an adjusted rate down. I like that idea, and I want to explore a couple of ideas about that, concepts about that. But first, I think just so it's on the record, I do not, every constituent I represent lives within 10 miles of where I'm sitting. I don't have the same situation as the others of you, but I do not think it's fair that our outlying friends and neighbors must suffer to try to cover this cost. So I agree with you. I want to sustain the benefits and resources that they have out there. If we find a way, for example, Mr. Bonanno suggested that the rate or some revenue is projected, if those revenues come in greater than we have projected, what's the process by which we adjust going forward the annual fee? Is there a way for us to modify it, and what's involved in that?
Through the chair, so the way we currently have our municipal code, the land use fee comes back to your board every year about May. And every year in May, you can adjust accordingly in May then. So if we've got some new way of making money, or we've found the costs were less, you can adjust at that time.
Thank you. I think it's paramount that we have an annual, or maybe more often, but at least an annual review of this so that we have taken every option to adjust it accordingly and not let this run over a longer period of time. So thank you for that. The idea of starting at 155 and having it go up by 3% a year, by the end of the 6th year, it will have risen to 180. Does it stop at, does the 3% escalator stop at year 7? or year 6 rather, or does it go on beyond year 6, or can we adjust it?
So let me say what you have now approved. The ceiling is the 218 approval from the public. The public has approved 180 with CPI over the next 5 years. I don't know what the CPI is going to be over the next 5 years, but say it could be 190 after that 5 years. That would be your ceiling, and you can never go above that without doing a new 218. But your 180 ceiling can go up on CPI, or you can say no today and lock it in, but you are approved to allow that CPI to go in through the public, and your ceiling under 218 could be, let's just call it 190, but it's 180, whatever CPI is for 5 years.
So the escalator cannot let it go above that amount?
Escalator would stop
Okay.
at that amount.
All right, I think that's important to have in there. So I too am open to the concept of establishing a lower fee, approving a maximum fee, but kind of walking into this with a lower fee at the outset.
Thank you, Supervisor. CAO punched in. Mr. Zervis.
Thank you, Chairman Scrivener. Just a point of clarification. So, and we've been running these models as recently as this afternoon, so I apologize for the changing information. But the 160, when we looked at financing a component of this, the financial needs for this plan, already included the removal of the technology projects. So it's not 155. 160 included two components. One, removal of those technology projects, and two, financing $30 million of cash flow needs to make this plan work. So I just wanted to make that clear. And it also, I know we're talking about a CPI, which is usually tied to the consumer price index. I think what we were envisioning was an actual scheduled inflationary, rate increase of 3% per year. So as opposed to your traditional CPI mechanism, I think what we would suggest, or what we modeled rather, is the $160 plus 3% a year. And I believe we can approve that for a period of 5 years, but if we come back annually, that would be what we would be anticipating. I'd be happy to answer any questions if that's confusing.
Thank you, Mr. Zervis. So, okay, now my screen changed a little bit. So is anybody else from staff punched in yet? No? Okay. Mr. Pope, can you speak to the technology components that would be removed and what impact that will or won't have?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to, so far what we've been talking about is green waste. I mean, developing a compost facility, you can put a little bit of messy stuff in there and it'll handle it. But what we're talking about under 1383 is organics. And organics are not just a little bit of goop mixed in with your green waste. It can be a messy load, and it will have a lot of things that will contaminate your compost. So we have envisioned the need for a facility that we somehow will get to it, the messy compost, or not messy organics. And what we're envisioning is, for instance, in the Metro Bakersfield area, there are a lot of restaurants that have bins full of organics that are messy, that wouldn't be good to put in with your green waste. We could be collecting someplace like Metro Bakersfield. We could allow them to go back to a single bin, because if we have the technology that we're looking at, the ability for it can take that and process it, all mixed garbage. It doesn't have to be separated. So we're really hoping that we could get the commercial loads to only have a single bin again, because if you go around and look at the stores and restaurants, they don't have room for 3 bins. They don't have ability to put a brown, blue, and a green out there. It's just cluttered everywhere. It leads to more just dumping on the ground. We could go back to a single bin and take this to this facility that we're talking about, and it would process it. So we are looking at this new technology as a way of dealing with those loads that would contaminate the composting facility.
Okay, thank you. We're 2 hours in on this, and not that it's not obviously important, but I want to see if we can, try to get to a conclusion here. It appears to me that the majority of the board is not in favor of dialing back services to our outlying areas, transfer stations, landfills, et cetera. So starting at that baseline, let's start getting some clarity on what this would look like for us to implement a fee that, for lack of a better way of saying it, gets us to where we need to go, but starts low, and if we have to increase it over time, we can. If the CPI is there, then, that seems to do, to serve the purpose, but is the 155, is that the baseline we need to start out? Is it 160? Where are we?
Yeah,
Excuse
Mr.
me,
Chairman.
and Supervisor Couch had punched in. I think you just punched out. Maybe I walked over what you were trying to say. I don't know. But we'll let Mr. Pope go, and then I'll go to you right away.
Mr. Chairman, the numbers I saw and ran and saw from CAO's office were that 160 with a 3% escalator, and we figured they could make them work. The chapter of could we reduce it by that new technology, I thought it was still in there, but this is the trouble running numbers at the last minute. Apparently, it was already out. So I don't know that we can go any below 160. Like I said, that was a sweet spot. We tried to borrow more. No, that's probably the best deal we got on the table today.
Okay, well, that's pretty clear. Supervisor Couch, did you want to come in, or I'm sorry?
I'm having trouble multiplying over here.
Okay. Well,
I want to go back to what Mr. Hall said just a second ago, because I got thoroughly confused. Forget the $5 and the 155. Just start at 160 and go at 3%, 3% increase each year. Did you just say that that number could get to $180, period? Or did you say it could get to $180 times the consumer price index or whatever inflator you had in there, which would be 190 or 200, whatever the amount would be?
So maybe it's easier to think of this visually. Consider what was approved on 218 as the ceiling that your board can't cross.
I understand, but that's a higher number than 180, correct?
It's 180 with 5 years of CPI increase, which we don't know what they are. They could be
Understood.
zero sometimes, they could be more. So in the next 5 years, that 180 can go up without you having to do another 218.
Got it.
And you don't have to adopt that now. You could set it at 180, or you could keep that ceiling going. That's the ceiling, and that's your options to set.
So let's assume that number is 200.
Okay?
Then that's really the ceiling
That would be the ceiling, yes.
over 5 years.
5 years from now, so 2027, whatever we're looking at, that's the ceiling of that number with the CPI between now and then.
Okay.
Okay, so I have 5 people punched in to speak right now. Not really. Nobody. So, all right, so once again, if we could, let's try to make a determination on where we want to start. I mean, clearly, 160 is a lot better than 180, not a whole lot better. But does that achieve what the department needs, so we don't have to start closing facilities and we don't start running in the red in our solid waste division? I think that, we're all resigned that we're going to have to make a poor choice no matter what it is.
Mr. Chairman, I think you're right there. Our plan was to try and keep the facilities that we have, keep the business as usual for the public, to make it almost transparent to the public. That took the 180. Through some magic of the financing, we can get it down to 160 as long as that escalator of 3% is in there. We can make that work. So it does start out less. It accomplishes the goal of the board to keep facilities open, we attain our goal of being able to fund the facilities we need to meet the regulations out there.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Supervisor Couch, I do have Peters and
Oh,
Magredim, but
sorry.
I would be, okay. Supervisor Peters?
Just out of curiosity, and this might be a question for Phil or Margot, but we provided, I think, pretty, you know, well, I mean, a lot of comments today, but we provided direction, I think, that we would like to see this implemented in. So can we just approve the recommendation as it's written to accept this, knowing that that's the 218 that's been approved, that's the ceiling, and then staff can take the direction that we've provided and develop how we're going to implement that?
There is a slight problem in that we have an ordinance, and I'm going to need to add 2 sections to the ordinance.
Okay.
I need to actually add one and modify one. So if we can have 5 minutes to write that, then you would be able to do that today, because this is a first read, second read of the ordinance, and you need to have the ordinance complete.
Got it. Thank you.
Happy to give staff 5 minutes if that will get us to the end zone here, but I do want to allow Supervisor Magrid and Couch to provide any more input they'd like to. Supervisor Magrid, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with what I think is an imprecise number to begin with. If 160 is an educated guess, I'm not as comfortable if it's a precise number. So if we're going to take a few minutes to run this, do this language, should we spend the same time with, can you tighten that up to a real number? You know, if you're 80 years old and you're living on $1,200 a month Social Security and that's all you got, a couple dollars makes a difference to you. So how long would it take you, Mr. Pope, to take that 160 to a precise number? Is it 157.30? Is it 161? What is that? How do we get that number for real?
Well, we hit 160 on our own in our shop. We turned it over to Elsa, and she came back at 160 also. So I thought we were right on the mark on that.
So Public Works and the CEO's office both agree that $160 even is the beginning number. Is that what you think, Mr. Pope?
Yes.
Is that what you think, Mr. Zervis?
That's correct.
Very good. Thank you. Then I'm fine with giving them the 5 minutes.
All he had to say for me was Elsa, so. Anyway, Supervisor Couch?
Well, do we have the latitude or capability, when this is brought back in May for an annual, do we have to, it has to come back to us each year, correct? According to your ordinance or our ordinance, or are you going to change that?
This year, you're doing it now rather than in May. Next year, you'll do it in May.
Okay.
This year, we went a little early.
Okay. So when we have that hearing, do we have the option, based on a report that we'll get from Solid Waste Public Works staff? For example, as Mr. Pope said, they didn't get around to spending the money as fast as they thought they were going to. So they have a surplus. We could say, you know what, this year, we're not going to do the 3%. We're going to do 1.5%, or we're going to do 0. We have that option each and every year that we have that hearing?
Yes, you do, and in fact, to an extent, you're required by law if we start finding that this fund is collecting way too much money, you have to audit it down.
I bet it says if it's collecting a significant amount of money, which was written by some attorney, no offense. But that's what they argue about. They argue over that word always.
I mean, this is a restricted fund, and it can only be used for what it's collecting.
Understood.
And if it starts turning into a runaway account, you've got to start refunding money.
Okay, but we have that capability
You
each and
have
every
that
year.
capability
Thank you.
every year.
Okay. County Council is punched in, and then I think while you folks, I'm going to ask while your folks are working on the language and whatever calculations may not be needed, then I do want to move forward, unless someone from the board objects, to getting to our remaining items 47 and 48. So County Council, go ahead, and then we'll give staff some time, and then I'd like to get moving on the rest of the agenda.
Chairman Scrivener, I just wanted to point out that much of the conversation and making the adjustments to the dollar amounts is focused on the item number 11, the land use. But due to this requirement that things be kept in proportion, the bin fee will also need to be adjusted. So as staff works on like the new numbers, it will be for both the land use and the bin fees.
Okay, so is that going to take more than 5 or 10 minutes then for you to sort through that? And if so, is today going to be enough time, or do we need to consider the proposition of pushing this out for a couple of weeks?
I think we can make it happen in 5 minutes.
Okay, great. All right, so Madam Clerk, what do we need as far as, can we continue these items till later in the meeting? Do I need to do anything, or can we just go to 47 and 48?
Do you want to make a motion and approve trailing this item to the end of the agenda?
So moved.
That sounds good.
Second.
Hold on. Wait a minute.
Okay. Madam Counsel, does that work for you? Thank you.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second to trail these items to the end of the meeting, then we'll go on to 47 and 48. So you have a motion, a second, please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, all ayes. I'm sorry, who made the second? I didn't hear.
I think it was Perez.
Thank you.
Yeah, just say to the members of the public, sorry, it usually isn't this complicated, but that's what we're doing today. Okay, so then we'll move on to item 47 under County Administrative Office. And we've got a proposed memorandum of understanding with the Kern County Firefighters Union. So, Mr. Brown, good afternoon. Thank you for your patience. We'll go ahead and let you tee this up for us.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman Scrivener, members of the board. We'll take all that 5 minutes on these two items here. So the item before you first, number 47, is a proposed MOU with our Kern County Firefighters Union through December 31st of 2022. We've been working for a long time with this particular union. Their last contract expired September 30th of 2017, and we negotiated after that to impasse and implementation of a resolution by your board last July or June without agreement. So we're happy to be here in a more productive stance with a contract that has been ratified by the members of the union before you today. So I'm happy to present this item. Included within the proposed MOU, which again expires at the end of this calendar year, is a 3% equity adjustment, which would go into effect on Saturday at the beginning of the next pay period. A introduction of the new 10 base cost of living adjustment step salary schedule, which has 2% incremental growth between each COLA step, again effective this Saturday. And upon adoption, all of our bargaining groups, all of our employees will be on that salary schedule at that time. So this is an important step. We've also negotiated to eliminate the fitness pay incentive program. If you remember the CPSM study, they recommended that we do away with that program in particular as one of their items in their study. We are incorporating that 4% incentive pay into the base salary, again effective this Saturday as well. And then the last salary item in particular here is a 2.5% COLA in July of 2022. Again, this is something that we've negotiated with all of our employees and I'm glad to carry that on with the firefighter union. The MOU also includes an increase in uniform allowance of $400 annually. And then we are implementing the overtime changes that your board imposed last June or June of 2020. The 14-day FLSA work period for determining overtime hours worked, moving from the 18-day work period that was imposed. We've agreed to a 14-day period for these bargaining unit employees who are working in a fire suppression capacity. And then exclusion of paid leave time, which was the item of significant dispute during the last contract negotiation. We have agreed to, again, move forward with a contract that includes that item as well. The bargaining unit members, again, will be getting some alternate time off to represent what we've done for winter recess with most of our employees. Their particular situation doesn't allow for winter recess to be applied the same way because of their 24-hour status. But we've provided 24 hours of additional paid time off for last year and this year. That's included. Upon adoption, this will be the first time that all of our bargaining units will be under contract since March 13th of 2015. So it's been a long time coming to get where we're at with each of our groups. So we're happy to see this. It will also, again, signify the implementation of fully implementation of the new compensation structure that we began negotiating this past summer with our bargaining groups, that 2% 10-step COLA system. The fiscal impact of this proposed MOU is roughly $10 million. And again, it's for 1 year to end December 31st, 2022. So our recommendation is that your board approve the MOU with the Kern County Firefighters Association and direct our office to implement the changes contained therein. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, Mr. Brown, the fact that once we approve this, provided we do, I'm making an assumption there, that will mean that we have agreements with all of our bargaining units is due in no small part to your efforts. And we appreciate you and the hard work that's taken for us to get to this point. So thank you. Any members of the public have any comment on this item? 47? Okay, seeing none, I'll return to the board.
Move approval.
Sure.
Supervisor Peters has a comment.
Thanks. I'd just like to echo what Supervisor Scrivener said and say, well done, Mr. Brown. That's, glad to hear that. Glad we were able to, get these benefits for our firefighters and get them on this agreement. So I would like to go ahead and make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Supervisor Couch. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, once again. Appreciate it. And to everyone at the CAO's office and also to our employee associations that, negotiated with us in good faith and got us to this point. So item number 48, and Mr. Brown, this is yours as well. Please proceed.
Yes, this item is a proposed amendment number 3 to the Chief Administrative Officer Employment Agreement with Mr. Ryan Alsop. Mr. Alsop's contract is set to expire next January 1st, 2023, but we are bringing forth an amendment that would extend that agreement 5 years until January 1st, 2028, and also provide a one-time salary increase of 3.5% of his base salary effective again this Saturday, which is the beginning of the next pay period. The proposed amendment also modifies the duration of his severance arrangement to a maximum of 12 months or the amount of time remaining on the agreement, whichever is less. And all the other terms of the employment agreement are proposed to remain the same. County Council has reviewed this amendment as to form, and we are recommending your board approve and authorize the chairman to sign and direct human resources to implement the changes contained therein.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Do we have any members of the audience that would like to make any comments on this item, 48? Okay, seeing none, I'll return to the board.
Motion. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to now turn to Mr. Zervis, and because I think that, okay, that's the conclusion of all the items we have. So we're going to go back to 10 and 11. So where are we with Public Works in their progress between Public Works and Council getting the ordinance language and any calculations they need? You know what? Let's just go ahead and take a 5-minute recess, Madam Clerk. Looks like they're still checking. So we'll take a 5-minute recess. Thank you. Okay, we'll reconvene the meeting, and we're back to considering item 10 and 11 concurrently, but we will be voting separately on these items. And so we've given staff an opportunity to look at some ordinance language and probably make some, I don't want to say last minute, but some final calculations. And so I'll turn to staff. Who shall I go to? Shall I go to Mr. Pope or County Council? I think.
Mr. Chairman, we luckily had the calculations already complete for that, and we have turned it over to Mr. Hall, who has changed the words of the ordinance in an acceptable manner to us. So I'll let him explain the ordinance.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Pope. And I'll go to Ms. Raison because she did have her hand off. And
Thank you,
Ms. Hall. Thank you.
Chairman Scrivener. I was just going to say the same thing. And I got Mr. Hall here with the scribbles, and he will read into the record the changes that would be made to the ordinances that you've
Great. Thank you,
already
Ms.
received.
Raison. Mr. Hall, please.
Chair, let's begin with the easy part of this. The ordinance draft in front of you, we will change the rates from 180 to 160 that are 180. The rates that are 144 will be changed to 128. That's reflective of the lowering rate. Section 5 of the draft ordinance is removed entirely. That is reference to you being able to do a CPI increase in the future in our ordinance now, but we already have that. It's kind of superfluous. We did not put a 3% increase in here because it's coming back every year, and you know, we kind of know what we've done today. We don't have to put that in the ordinance because you can do the 3% or not next year if you don't want to. So that isn't in. We need to add a subsection 5 to section 2, and that's kind of the key provision here. And it will say, the Proposition 218 process was completed, allowing for an increase up to $180 and $144 with a CPI increase adjustment formula. Notwithstanding that approval, the board hereby sets the rates at a lesser amount with acknowledgement that the board may increase this rate in future years to the 218 approved rate with the adjustment formula. And that would be the complete ordinance then.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Appreciate it. Okay, so I don't see any other requests from staff to make any additional comments, and so I will give one last opportunity for the public, even though we've already gone to the public. Nevertheless, I want to give any opportunity. Okay, okay, come on up, Mr. Barnes. I was waiting for you, Kevin, all day. Good afternoon.
The guy that started this discussion. I'm sorry. Well, I'm really blaming it on my wife, though. Remember, she told me, go to the board and ask to take the sting out of this rate increase for those little old ladies who I volunteer to fix houses for. So thank you very much. I'm going to proudly tell them about this day. It's pretty cool.
You shouldn't have blamed your wife, though.
It's too late. 41 years, we have a blame thing that works. I told Ms. Brooks at the break to pass on to Mr. Pope, great job on the Capitol layout. 3 weeks ago, when I was here saying, whoa, look at this Capitol, I think we need to do something about it. It was kind of unclear. And so I think a good job's been done laying that out. You have a big roadmap before you, lots of expensive things to do. So thanks again for the work, the clarity. And I stand ready to help out as a community guy or whatever it takes. Been around the block with that. Okay,
well,
thank you.
Mr. Barnes, thank you. It's very gracious of you, and I think that your contribution to this discussion has helped us to work our way through it. Wasn't something that any of us wanted to have to tackle. Clearly, these are the costs of living in the state of California. And unfortunately, it's been thrust upon us to have to pass along those mandated costs onto our constituency, which none of us wanted to do. Yes. But that is the situation we're in. Supervisor Maggard, did you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. I was asked a question by Mr. Turnipseed about what the cost of the financing would be, and I ran a quick number, $30 million at a 1.5% interest for 15 years. the financing cost is about $3.5 million, $3,520,000. So that's a reasonable number, I think, based on what we're doing, and not as inordinate as I was concerned at first that it might be.
Thank you, Supervisor. Okay, so I don't see anyone that's punched in, but I think we are at the point where we're ready for a motion with the adjustments to the language that council has read into the record. For item, excuse me, yes, for item 10. Thank you, Madam Council, because we will be voting on these separately. So we have item number 10. So I'll entertain a motion from any member of the board. Supervisor Peters.
Supervisor Scrivener, I'll make a motion on staff's recommendation on item 10.
Excuse me, Chairman Scrivener?
Yes, ma'am.
The changes that Mr. Hall read actually line up.
Did they pertain to 11?
With
Okay,
11.
excuse me, yeah, okay. Okay, so 10, just as proposed then. Are we safe with that, Supervisor Peters?
Yes, sir, yeah, just staff's recommendation on item 10.
10 needs to be changed also because of the proportionality change related to the land use fee.
Okay, and excuse me, Mr. Hawley, did you read that into the, read those changes?
I have not read that one into the record, and it'll be different because the ordinances are established quite different.
Okay.
So when we're ready for that one, after we do the land use fee, we can move on to the commercial fees.
Okay, sorry, I think you might have confused me. So are we doing 11 first then, Mr. Hall? We're going to do 11 then 10?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're on 11
Okay.
with the changes that Mr. Hall read into the record. Supervisor Peters.
Yes, sir, I'll amend my motion to support staff's recommendation for item 11 as stated by Mr. Hall.
I think we should do 10 before 11.
No, not today.
I'll second your motion.
Not today. Sorry. All right, you have a motion and a second. Please cast your
Would you
vote.
consider putting in $10 million for District 3?
It's 10A. Supervisor Scott, we're going to do 10A. All right. Okay. All right, so back to item number 10. Mr. Hall, you have the floor. Oh, sorry. Can't you assume that he was a yes when he made the motion? Sorry. Mr. Hall.
On number 10, we will be changing the 218 rates in this, which is a bend fee, which will now be $3, and a gate fee that's $58. I see Lisa shaking her head yes. So that will be the adjusted formula to make sure that those fees are proportional to the land use fee. In this, we will change, just move it here. Section 3 of the ordinance will be removed, and it will instead say, the 218 process was completed, allowing for an increase in these fees with a CPI adjustment formula. Notwithstanding the approval of the board hereby sets these rates at a lesser amount with acknowledgement that the board may increase these rates in future years up to the 218 approved rate.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hall. Open this item up as well to the public. Any members of the public who would like to make comment on 10 before I return to the board? Okay, seeing none. I'll ask the board for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So that brings us to the conclusion of our agenda for this afternoon. And so I will entertain a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, February 8th at 9 a.m.
So moved.
We are adjourned.